July 1518. On a cobbled street in Strasbourg, a woman steps out of her house and begins to dance. There's no music, no celebration, no reason at all. She simply dances, and she can't stop. Her husband begs her to stop. She ignores him. She dances until the sun goes down, until she collapses from sheer exhaustion. The next morning, with her feet swollen and bleeding, she gets up and dances again. The most terrifying part isn't that she danced her body to its limit. It's what came next. An entire city would agree, out of fear and belief, on the shape a sickness was supposed to take. This is not a legend. It's one of the strangest and best documented episodes in European history. Welcome to the Dark Thread. We're in 16th century Alsace. Strasbourg was then a free city within the Holy Roman Empire, in what is now France. A prosperous trading city on the banks of the Rhine, with cobbled streets and a cathedral whose spire was among the tallest structures in all of Christendom. Its population has often been estimated at around 25,000. But beneath that prosperity, the city was on the edge of collapse. The summer was hot. Harvests had been poor for years. Bread was expensive. Disease and hunger hung in the air. And into that suffocating summer stepped a woman. The accounts remember her as Frau Trophäa. According to various chronicles, Frau Trophäa began to dance on the 14th of July in the narrow cobbled street outside her timber-framed home. With no music at all, she simply started to dance, ignoring her husband's pleas to stop. We have to be honest here, there's uncertainty even about her identity. There's also uncertainty about the identity of the first dancer, whether she was an unnamed woman or Frau Trophäa, and about how many dancers were involved, somewhere between 50 and 400. The name that has come down to us stems largely from later reconstructions. What does seem solid is what happened next. She kept going for days, and within a week more than 30 people were caught up in the same way. Neighbors who saw her began to copy her, then their neighbors did too. The city watched, caught between fascination and panic. The city authorities were alarmed by the ever-growing number of dancers. They summoned the physicians, and here is where the story takes a turn that makes it almost impossible for us to grasp. The doctors did not speak of demonic possession. At least, not at first. Early in the plague, the physicians and the city council agreed they were facing an illness, and they set out to treat it as such. Their diagnosis: the medical theory of the age, inherited from antiquity, spoke of the body's humors. Contemporary explanations for the dancing plague included demonic possession and overheated blood. And if the problem was too much heat in the blood, the solution seemed logical within that flawed logic. You had to let the sickness out. You had to sweat the fever away. You had to keep dancing. So the authorities made one of the most counterproductive decisions on record. Civic and religious leaders theorized that more dancing was the answer, and so they set up guild halls for the dancers to gather in, hired musicians to accompany them, and even brought in professional dancers to help the afflicted. Let's stop on that image for a second. A city that, faced with an epidemic it doesn't understand, builds a wooden stage, hires an orchestra, and pays dancers to keep the rhythm going. Day and night. The result was predictable. Some healthy townspeople joined in to watch over the dancers, feed them, and catch them when they collapsed from exhaustion, which only helped spread the contagion. The more they danced, the more people caught it. And the longer it went on, the higher the physical toll. Here I have to be very careful, because this is where history and exaggeration become tangled. Many popular accounts claim a chilling figure. According to those accounts, the dancing plague lasted more than a month, from mid-July to late August or early September, and at its peak, as many as 15 people died every day. But be careful, this figure is heavily disputed by historians. There's controversy over whether people actually danced themselves to death. Some sources claim that for a time the plague killed around 15 people a day, but the Strasbourg city sources from the time of the events made no mention of the number of deaths, or even whether there were any deaths at all. There appear to be no contemporary sources recording fatalities. In other words, the idea that dozens of people died comes mostly from later chronicles, not from records made at the time. Some historians warn that the surviving municipal records offer no clear final count. What can be said with confidence is stranger than any statistic. For several weeks, a European city watched a public affliction spread through its streets, and those in charge tried to treat it by making the dancers dance more. One way or another, the episode ended. The strange event didn't stop until September, when the dancers were taken to a shrine high on a mountain to pray for their absolution. Because when medicine failed, the city turned back to religion. And here enters the key name in this story, Saint Vitus. In 1518, Strasbourg lay in a region where one particular folk belief ran strong. Saint Vitus, a Christian martyr, was thought to have the power to inflict or to lift a dancing curse. Shrines dedicated to him stood nearby. The council ordered the worst afflicted to be loaded onto carts and taken on a 3-day journey to the shrine of Saint Vitus. There, the priests placed the sick beneath a wooden carving of the saint. They put small crosses in their hands and red shoes on their feet, sprinkled with holy water and marked with crosses painted in consecrated oil. This ritual had the desired effect. Little by little, the flow of dancing pilgrims dwindled, and the plague faded as mysteriously as it had begun. So what really happened in Strasbourg? Over the centuries, several theories have emerged. One of the most repeated points to a poison. 20th century researchers suggested that the afflicted may have eaten bread made from rye flour contaminated with ergot fungus, known to cause convulsions. It's a tempting explanation, but it has a serious problem. Ergot poisoning does cause delirium and spasms, but it also severely impairs coordinated movement, which rules it out as a substantial cause of the phenomenon. Put another way, someone suffering that poisoning could hardly dance for days on end. Another theory pointed to cults. The American sociologist Robert Bartholomew proposed that the dancers were members of heretical sects, dancing to win divine favor. But this doesn't quite fit either, because the accounts describe people who were suffering and begging for help, not celebrating anything. And here we reach the explanation that today has the most support among specialists, one that dismantles much of the myth of a supernatural curse. The most widely accepted theory came from the American medical historian John Waller, who laid out in several works his reasons for believing the dancing plague was a form of mass psychogenic disorder. In other words, collective hysteria, but not in the dismissive sense of the word. These kinds of outbreaks occur under conditions of extreme stress and take shape from local fears. In the case of the 1518 plague, Waller cited a series of famines and the presence of diseases like smallpox and syphilis as the overwhelming stressors weighing on the people of Strasbourg. Add to that the deep belief in Saint Vitus, that saint who could curse with dance. The collective mind of a city terrified, starving and sick already had its script written. The cultural script was already there. A person could be possessed by a dancing affliction, and others could follow. Waller's argument is that Frau Trophäa, under the enormous stress of hunger, disease, and the pressures of late medieval life, entered a state her neighbors interpreted through the story of Saint Vitus. And the most unsettling part of all, once the council provided musicians and spaces for the dancers, the authorities unwittingly confirmed the script. The city was effectively telling people that this was a real affliction, that dancing was its form, and that more dancing was the cure. There lies the true horror of this story. Not a poison in the bread, not a demon, but the power of a shared belief capable of driving hundreds of bodies to exhaustion. Because if Strasbourg teaches us anything, it's that sometimes the phenomenon hardest to explain isn't in the heavens or in the blood. It's in the collective mind of a community pushed to the edge, ready to dance to the rhythm of the fear it created itself. Thank you for following this thread with us. If this story unsettled you, stay close. In the darkness of the past, there's always another thread to pull.